the 19th of October 2023. This is our vintage again, vintage section, and we're dealing with the internal combustion, but this is the hot bulb engine, and I want to explain the hot bulb engine to you and how it worked. Now, it can be 4-stroke or 2-stroke. It doesn't really matter which it is. Generally, a 2-stroke, by the way, can have valves. They can have valves, but generally the simplest way of doing a 2-stroke is that you have a port here and a port there, and as the piston comes down under firing, the exhaust gases get out here, and when it comes down another bit, the inlet gas goes in here, and then the piston moves up and compresses it and fires it like that. With the 4-stroke, you generally have 2 valves at the top. One opens on the inlet, one they all close and compress it, one they all stay there while it fires, and when it fires the exhaust valve opens and it's out the exhaust, and the cycle goes on again. Now the thing is, you will probably understand how injectors work and how the spark plug ignition works. There's no need to go there, and there's plenty of videos on that. But how does the hot bulb engine work? Now remember, I told you in the earlier video about my uncle's Ferguson 20 TVO. He let it get low in water, the cylinder head got hot, and when he turned off the ignition, it wouldn't stop. It would only stop when you either cut the fuel or put a load on it, like putting it in 4th gear and the brake on and letting out the clutch. It didn't need its own ignition. It didn't go as efficiently. It was igniting by the heat of the cylinder head, and it was running there good old. So that proves it can be done. I also told you about the Petros engine, which would run when you injected the diesel into the intake without any injector fuel at all. So that tells you that it doesn't have to be exact, and then you can adjust all the factors to get it to run reasonably good, and that's done in model aircraft engines. Now, with the hot bulb engine, what you actually have is something similar to the Ferguson TVO tractor. You have an extension onto the cylinder head, and that extension is a chamber where the ignition takes place. The compression ratio of a hot bulb engine is a lot less. It's 3 to 1 to 5 to 1, a lot less than a petrol or diesel engine, and it generally burns better. Well, they say it'll run on petrol. I have never checked it, but it runs on paraffin, TVO, rough crude oil, any kind of vegetable oil or anything that's a fuel will burn in it. It'll burn even there's a bit of a liquid in it, a bit of water. It doesn't really matter. Now, so you have this bulb. Now the thing about it is there are 2 types. One where the mixture of, we'll call it diesel here now for simplicity. One where the mixture of diesel is taken in and compressed with the oxygen and is fired by the heat of the hot bulb, or the other one where there's an injector here in the top. Now that injector is not as advanced or the same as the modern diesel engine injector, but I think it would probably still work. Now don't forget, with a modern diesel car or tractor, there are glow plugs to get it to start in cold weather, to bring the temperature, to get ignition in cold weather. So there's not that big a difference between the glow plug, between the hot bulb and glow plug principle and the modern diesel engine in many ways. Now remember, so this hot bulb is then heated. So I'm going to draw here. I don't have a red biro. I'm going to draw your blow lamp, and it is always usually a blow lamp using paraffin. So you heat it up real hot. You heat it up real hot, and it will not start till that is hot, very hot. And if you look at the videos there online with them starting a hot bulb engine, this has to be got hot. Because the compression is not as high as a diesel engine or a petrol engine, you can twist them by hand a lot easier, and most were started by hand. Because if this was hot enough, when the fuel got in here, it burned generally always. You usually got easier starting than you might if you had a modern diesel engine, which if it's a bit war, does not start too easily They can be going wow, 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 wow for a long time. Now, remember again, there's two systems. One takes in the fuel and the air and sort of mixes it in a poor way, or it injects it into the cylinder here and forces the whole lot up here. And as it's forced up, it becomes compacted into a smaller space, and usually it will ignite by the heat of the glow plug. And that is one way, right? Now, we'll show you some of the different designs. This would be a type of glow plug that you'd find on a Lanz tractor. These would have a round egg-shaped glow plug, right? They'd be heated up here as well by a lamp. Now, in this version, in the Lanz version, let's see now, how is this better? Oh, yeah, this is better shown to you this way. It's more the face of my hand. In the Lanz version, there's a tube. There's a tube. No, there's a tube like this, and there's an injector and a pipe. So there's a tube. Do you see the tube? And there's an injector, and that injector is not the same as a modern injector. It's sealed. There's a sort of a spring valve that lets it hold back the pressure of the fuel until a certain point, and then it lets it in. And they try to get it to be an atomizer, but it's not really. It's usually just like spraying. Very, very similar to if you had this syringe here, giving it an odd like that. Very similar to that, and maybe a little ball or something to stop the exploding gases from going back into it. But I think they'll nearly run if it only drips it. Now, so the important point to remember is you have an injector in this type, but it's not a modern injector. It's a more simple injector. And what happens is you heat this. Now I'll draw this in here with a blow lamp. You heat it. Underneath here, you apply your heater. We'll say this is it here. Not so easy to do. You apply your heater here, and you heat the bulb till it's mad hot, and then you turn it, and the fuel goes in and gets on this. Now, in some of the Lanz tractors, they had a sort of a membrane here, a light piece of perforated steel that could heat up as well, and it tended to be better at evaporating and turning the fuel into gas than if it was just pure steel. But pure steel or cast iron will work either. Now don't forget, with the TVO engine, you started on petrol and you put the exhaust gases out through the manifold, which has a baffle plate. In other words, the exhaust gets down, but it can't get into the intake, and the fuel on the TVO is sucked up past the hot baffle plate, which makes it atomized, which makes it into a gas. It converts the TVO into a gas. Petrol doesn't need to be converted into a gas. It's volatile enough as it is. When it's mixed with air, it becomes a sort of an enriched petrol or gasoline fuel air mixture. Are you with me on that? Whereas you can't do that with paraffin. You need to heat it up, and it's heated in the TVO engine like that Ferguson 20 TVO. You started on petrol and you switched it over to TVO, and the oil is leaked. They usually had the petrol tank separate to the TVO tank, but in the same tank, and they seem to always leak across. They never got them very good, with the result that a lot of people, including my father, God be good to him, would fill it with a baby power bottle, sort of a little whiskey bottle, and they'd fill the bowl, and that would be enough to get it going. Now this here has a baffle the same. It's heated from underneath by a blow lamp, and the fuel is injected in. But it can be that the mixture is brought in some other way, maybe injected into the cylinder here when it's at the bottom, or inputted in by means of the sump or some other means. It is not the case that there has to be an injector, but they are universally the best and work the best. Now I want to change, I want to go to this one. Sorry, I just didn't get to this yet. Now here is another one. This is another type 1, which is merely a tube and an injector here, and you heat this tube real hot, and when the gases go up here, they fire. Now there may be an injector and there may be not. If you get this mad hot, she'll keep running. So it doesn't have to be a bulb. And this shape here that I had is in a lot of them. This shape, you see this shape here, a kind of a T. Now I'll try and draw that again for you. I'll just stop here again. So if you look at this particular one, it's T-shaped. So this is looking sideways at it, and this is looking down at it. So this is hollow inside, and this is hollow inside. And in all hot bulbs, the aperture, the hole between the cylinder and this, is a bit bigger than the marker. It's usually 3/4 to an inch, and that's all that's needed, right? So what happens with this one is, this is heated with a blow lamp. There may be, this is a little cleaning port that's on a lot of them. There may be an injector going in here, or there may not. If it's supplied by the mixture from the sump or from another source, there's no injector. If it has an injector, this is it. But this is hollow. So when the fuel is forced in here, or the air, and it's fired with the heat, it pushes the whole lot out through this hole. So what happens is, the initial over-rich combustion goes out through here and meets the compressed air in the cylinder, and that gives it more air and more oxygen, and gives more nitrogen. And of course, in an engine, any internal combustion engine, the expanding nitrogen also adds. The heated nitrogen rapidly expands. It expands very quick. We might do an experiment on that sometime, but the heated nitrogen also adds to another substance that expands and drives down the system, this piston, even though the nitrogen does not combust as such, but it expands. So all works out very neat. And for this reason, that I'm inclined to say that the modern 4-stroke diesel engine in small and medium-sized lorries and cars cannot be improved on, and in the large 2-stroke ship version, it can't be much improved on either. And they need to use that oil, that heavy oil, because a lot of that can't be used in cars and lorries. Are you with me? And tractors. So it's useful to have shipping to use up that particular heavier oil. Now, have I explained the hot bulb engine? Once it gets going, the constant firing keeps the hot bulb engine hot. So you might need a cooling system for a very long running of the main cylinder, but this will not melt. The temperature is not high enough for it to melt the hot bulb. Now I need to add something here now, and I'm just going to do it. We leave that bit there. Now you see the general idea. It doesn't matter the shape. This is a kind of a tubular one, but whether it's a tubular or not, there has to be a bulb protection, and sometimes people confuse this. The bulb is the part that does the work, but there's a shroud, or a neg-shaped top on it, and that's, you'll see that on all hot bulb engines. Understand, that is not the hot bulb, that's a protector. So we do one on each of these, so you get the general idea. There's a lid like that, like a kind of like a goose egg, and there's a hole at the bottom, and there's an injector at the top. So this one has an injector. So this one here now has the surround. You can put your hand into that when it's cool. There's a hole here to let the blow lamp up. There's a hole here to let the injector in and come out through the top. It doesn't have to be airtight. And there's usually some kind of a nut here that you can get in here to clean this one. So to get into this one, you need to open this big nut, and then you can get into this one to do a bit of poking at it. And this is bolted on. And in the Lands tractor and in tractors, one of the big things why this is so robust, you get a fella who'll be doing 15 miles an hour and ram it into a pier or ram it into a big oak tree, and if that happened, you'd burst the plug, you'd burst the bulb inside, and you'd have no tractor. But by making it bully like that, you have a strong system. Now watch this now again. There's the hot bulb, but this is now what you see when that's done. I'm just drawing it here. So what you actually see is this, a big yoke like this, and it's around here. So you have this big heavy metal steel yoke or cast iron rounded, big heavy metal. You see it here, a cover. But this is only the cover. This is the bulb. And this function is to protect the bulb. You put your blow lamp up here and all that, and this is to protect the bulb. Or if you want, maybe this is upside down. No, that's the right way there. Now we just leave that. Now, do you understand that? Forget about this wee bit here. We leave that down, and to get this across so that next time you see them, you will understand what that is and not mistake the cover on the hot bulb with the actual hot bulb itself. So here it is again. you'll have two big bolts, big strong yoke. There'll be a hole in the bottom here for the blow lamp. So here's the blow lamp underneath, and like that, and the hot bulb is here or whatever, and if there's an injector, it'll come down through a shroud here, a little cover that lets it in, and this has no real effect. It does help to keep the heat in. It helps to keep this warm. When it's running for hours and hours, it takes the wind and the cold off it and gives it a deal of protection. And it also protects it from fellas hitting it off trees and walls and all of that, and gives it a bit of protection. Have I explained that now? That's how the hot bulb works, whether it's a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke. The Lanz tractors are 2-stroke, and they did do them in diesels later, but the hot bulb ones are plenty of them there on YouTube, and you'll hear them going pump, 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 pump. They scavenged the air from the sump. There was oil in the sump, but sometimes they'd mix and cause trouble, but only the air came up into the cylinder down here through a port, and then the whole lot was compressed into the top and the hot bulb, and at the hot bulb a measured amount of diesel or whatever, and they could use nearly lots of fuel, heavy oil, lubricating oil, waste oil. If you mixed waste oil and diesel, it'd work all right. I'm sure corn oil would work too, sunflower oil and all that. But anyway, I don't think petrol worked too good. To say they would, I don't know about that. I won't answer you on that. But the point is, once it got the squirt of diesel, it hit down on this thing, which was red hot, and that burned it, and it had an initial combustion here, which immediately shot out the only way it could into the cylinder. And when all of those burning gases met the oxygen in the compressed cylinder, they fired and gave it a belt down. Have explained that fairly good. And there was, I don't know why there was such a big exhaust on the Lanz. It was probably because they were noisy. They were damn noisy. They tried to curtail it a bit. Now, folks, on 17 minutes, I hope I've explained it. And this video is as much about my ability to explain something as anything else, to see what you think. And please don't be afraid to say, you forgot to tell me something. I don't mind. I'd rather have a student that was asking questions and doubting it than a lad that was just not even taking it in. The hot bulb engine, they ruled from about 1925 to about 1960. The Lanz tractor went over to the proper diesel. The later Lanzes did not have a hot bulb. But you'll see, you know the hot bulb a mile away by the big lad in the front of it, the big bulb thing in the front of it. Point is, that is not the bulb. The bulb is inside in that. And I think I've explained all of that. They were useful. They used to use them a lot in countries where there was a Nile pipeline going by, where apparently you could tap a drop of the oil, or they'd let you have a wee drop or two of tap, and it'd run crude oil. That was a great thing. You didn't need refined oil. See, the injector was only a rough injector. It wasn't a modern injector that you could let through a modern diesel injector pump. The pump was there, but it could pump sludgy stuff and all kinds of old stuff. It mightn't pump hair or horsehair or anything like that, but it pumped all thick or light liquids. Do you get my point? And it didn't have to be too exact. They were quite hard on fuel. They used quite a good bit of fuel, but they ran. So for sawmills and stuff like that, they were quite popular, but I don't know if there are any available. Is there any available now? There are a few places in America still using steam in sawmills and in workshops. And the thing about the steam in a sawmill or in a workshop was you didn't have that noise. It's a more pleasant psh, psh, psh. Whereas with the hot bulb, you have pump, 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 pump. You'd hear them miles away, and they were noisy. So then, of course, the whole concept of a single cylinder engine, 2-stroke engine, was overtaken by the modern 4-stroke diesel engine for tractors and all that. Right, that's enough. It'll be very interesting to see how many of my viewers are interested in this. There's no need to wonder anymore how the hot bulb engine worked. I think I've explained it fairly good. And then you can go into all the vintage sections on YouTube and Rumble and all those and see the various engines started. Can I just finish to say that the English Marshall tractor was a standard 2-stroke diesel, but the trouble was getting anyone to twist it or to start it. It had no decompressor, so what there was in that in the cylinder there was a little hole, and you put a black powder shotgun cartridge into it. You screwed it up. You put in a little bit of nitrate insaturated cigarette paper into the front, which also gave a little bit of heat to the injector. And then you tightened up that as well, left it there smouldering, it just helped. And then when you brought the piston to top dead center, to top dead center, you hit the nipple, you hit the thing with the striker with a mallet, and that fired the cartridge and shoved it down, and that gave it enough impetus to get going. They were not hot bulb engines, they were two-stroke diesel engines. That's it. 20 minutes or 21 minutes, not that long. That's the hot bulb engine, and if you enjoyed that, you have to give me the credit of a like. That's all I want. See you back. Thank you very much.